Let me introduce myself once again. My name is Nara from 1237 Ventures, and today we are having a session um, on the topic serving the underserved, FemTech for the masses. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. Today's session is part of our launch for the upcoming Alpha Startups for Her. You can scan the QR code on the screen to learn more about the program and application. You can also click the link we've just shared in the chat box to find out more about our pre-accelerator program. Just to give you some context about Alpha Startups for Her, for Her is a pre-accelerator program by 1237 Ventures. This is our second batch of for Her. This batch is about to empower early stage startups building scalable women-focused solutions. We are open to any stage, welcoming FemTech founders developing women health solutions and also women-led startups across all sectors, creating real impact in Southeast Asia. This is your platform to validate ideas, achieve product market fit, and grow your startup. Alpha Startups for Her is a 10 weeks program taking Southeast Asian founders from idea to launch and beyond. So basically think of Alpha Startups as an intensive bootcamp guiding new and aspiring entrepreneurs on how to start and run a femtech startup and women-led business. On the screen here, you can see some of the benefits that you may get from joining this for Her. The program will be delivered in a hybrid format with virtual sessions and in-person sessions here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The focus area for our upcoming batch, as you can see on the screen, is fertility and reproductive health, beyond tracking, menstrual and hormonal health innovations, integrative women health solutions, FemTech for the underserved, and lastly, women-led startups beyond health. Here are some highlights from our first batch of for Her, which we hosted early this year. 10 early stage startups were selected, where Dear Kyra from Malaysia and Magnolia Collective from Indonesia was selected as the top 2 of the cohort. Bliss Me from Hong Kong was selected as the crowd favorite during the pitch during the demo day. And today we have one of the alumni of for Her with us, Sastya from Ovy Health. A little bit about Sastya. Sastya is a passionate advocate for women's health, specializing in reproductive wellness and fertility awareness. As the founder of Ovy Health, she's dedicated to empowering women through innovative solutions and education that promote informed decision-making regarding their reproductive health. So here we have Sastya, who will be speaking about one of our focus area for for Her 2026 FemTech for the underserved. So Sastya, you can take it away.
Hello. Yes, I guess now my screen can already be seen. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming here. My name is Sastya. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ovy Health. So today, I'm given a very special platform to talk about serving the underserved. And I think for me personally, it's very close to what I'm doing and basically the visions that we have for Ovy Health because of few reasons that I'm going to be sharing more here. So a little bit about me. I am the CEO and co-founder of Ovy Health. So we've been around for 2 years, but personally, I've been in the industry for more than 6 years. Prior to Ovy Health, I was running a women's health community, specifically in the sector of pregnancy. And because while I was doing that, I see a lot of gaps that need to be filled, a lot of issues that has not been talked about. That kind of led me to try to find another solutions that can work better in a in a country or like a community like Indonesia. And through that as well, I believe there's a lot of other issues that has not been researched, and hence kind of pushed me to take DBA in health right now at UCL while I'm still doing my while I'm still doing OV Health. I mean, and I'm also a specialized certified hormonal specialist, where I deal and look into hormonal issues when it comes to a woman health as well as like the reproductive health. And when I talk about me, I cannot take away my roots as well as like where I'm coming from, which is Indonesia. So I was born in Indonesia. I grew up in Indonesia as well before moving to a few other countries in Southeast Asia. And I always look into how I can contribute more to Indonesia and how I can make life better in Indonesia. And if you guys don't really know about Indonesia, apart from maybe Bali, Indonesia is one of the biggest country in the world. I think we're number 4 in terms of population. And currently there are more than 286 million of people in Indonesia. Indonesia is also one of the countries with the most islets. There are more than 17,500. And although on the map it looks pretty small, Indonesia is slightly wider than the US. Oops. Yeah. So you can imagine like how far it is from the west to the east, like how many hours of flight that it needs to be taken. Especially with the islands, there's a lot of water in between that. Then Indonesia, being such a big country, we only have around 160,000 practicing doctors. This is relatively GP. Those consider like GP or those who graduated from medical school. According to the Ministry of Health of Indonesia, by 2024, there are only 160,000 people. And when it comes to specialists, there are around 49,000. That's based on the data on the 2023. But I think specifically in the gynae, there are only around 3,000 to 4,000 people. Then if anyone asks me, yeah, but it's quite a big number. Maybe in other countries, they don't have enough. They don't have this much. Why do we say that the access for care in Indonesia is very limited? Well, there are only 0.68 doctor per 1,000 of people. And if you see on the screen, there are 100 people here, but I don't even mark one of it because, you know, within 100, there's only like 0.08. That means for every doctor, just the normal GP, they would be serving more than 2,000 people. And it's when it comes to their expertise as well as their time to serve these people and factoring in the location, it's a lot. If we want to compare what is going on in Indonesia to every other country, I've taken like 2 examples, like the easiest one. In 2024, doctors in South Korea actually did a strike. It is due to like a lot of problems, but one of it is also because the doctors feel that their working hours is pretty long and it's tiring for them. They did not safe and they require a lot more kind of like support when it comes to providing to the patients. But if you look at the ratio between the number of doctors in Korea, it's 2.1 to 1,000 people. And the next country that I would like to bring in is the UK. So as probably you guys have heard, currently there's a lot of strikes as well going on in the UK because there's a lack of doctors available under the NHS system. And they even say that like there are probably 100,000 of vacancies available within the NHS, ranging from like doctors, nurse, and all kind of like healthcare professionals. But when we look at the ratio between doctors and the people, it's still 3.2. So imagine if someone in Indonesia say that, oh, we do really have a problem. It's very hard to get like a doctors. It's very hard to maybe like just get care in Indonesia. It could be even more severe than all of these countries who already, having so-called the big problem, as they say. Yeah. But if then someone said, "Oh, but why don't we hear anything from Indonesia? Who actually need these doctors? Does it mean that people in Indonesia don't need doctors?" It's not true, for sure. And unfortunately, in a case like this, the one that is affected the most are women. Before like talking about that, I would like to go back into talking about the problems. Like, what are the problems that are actually arising? Number one, definitely, it's so obvious that we have a problem in terms of access. In Indonesia alone, for example, there's not enough healthcare professionals. And because of this, the nearest specialist could be 3 hours away at least. Imagine you're sick and you have to fly or like take a bullet for 3 hours. How would you feel about it? Right? Then we look into cost. Generally, when it comes to women health issues, the cost is pretty high. For example, if I want to take into ART or like IVF, the cost to do one cycle of IVF is more than 2 times of the GDP per capita in Indonesia. So it's like, just to get the care that you want and that you need, you might have to save up for 2 years without even eat. That's how severe it is when it comes to the cost. And then, but the thing is, if you look at any other countries as well, like globally and generally, a lot of women's health issues are not even covered by either subsidies or second, insurance. And these are the kind of costs or like disadvantages that women are experiencing due to the lack of access. And unfortunately, it's not only in Indonesia. Last but not least, although it's actually not the least problems that we have, but the least problem that we want to talk about today is the lack of awareness and education. Same with, I think, majority of countries in Asia, there are a lot of like stigma that going around the women's health issue. So if you combine the poor educations on fertility, hormone, and early preventions, which is also happening not only in Indonesia, and the fact that women, even like families from like generations before us, talk about our health only when we think about like pregnancy, it kind of gives a gap about like what do we know and what do we need to know. And if you look at all of these trees, it's becoming kind of like a core issue on why women health has not been advancing in not only Indonesia, but also Southeast Asia. Yeah. If all of this problem has been something that we notice, like it's something that's so obvious when it comes to data. It's something that is also visible if you look at the resources that we have. We sometimes forget whether it's real or not real, and how the severity when it comes to like the effect of all of these problems. But here I quoted 3 of our patients, our users who actually use Ovy Health and get the help from Ovy Health. One say that they did an IVF and the doctor simply don't know what is going on. And I'm not saying that the doctors are not good, but the experience and the expertise not available here. Right? Another person waited 11 years to conceive simply just because they were told that it's okay to wait and that they're fine to just wait for it happen naturally until it's becoming too late. And because it's too late, then now they no longer have the chance. Another person said they were told that they really don't have any problem when it comes to their reproductive health, only to find out that for the past 10 years, their problem is actually endometriosis. It was told only gastric. See, in this, like those the problems that we discussed earlier are like when it's like combined, it's creating like a bigger problems, a real problem that actually reducing the quality of life of women. It could be as severe as these cases, but it could also be as simple as like hormonal issue. And when you just like any other chronic disease, when you keep those problems, I mean health problems, without actually solving it, it could eventually get worse, and it could at the end like keep on reducing the quality of life of that very specific woman. And so, who do we want to serve in this case, right? Ovy Health in specific always say that we want to serve women. Then sometimes I also get the questions like, who among all of these women do you want to serve? We do want to serve the underserved, but it is very unfortunate that when we talk about the underserved, we talk about the woman in general. We can be looking at women in rural or semi-urban areas where maybe the options are not as much as the cities. Maybe we can talk about like low income when the problem is like very straightforward. It goes into more into like financials. Maybe also a woman with limited digital access, because then their option really just like getting lesser and lesser. For example, like they don't get the online educations, they might not be able to access even like telehealth, they might not even be accessing to like a few other things. We could also be talking about like migrant workers, you know, when maybe their benefits tied to their own country, not exactly where they work. And so what they can do when it comes to their health is very, very limited. But we also have to think about the single woman and the unmarried woman who are excluded from the fertility care. Why? Because again, with the situations that we have in Southeast, like in Asia and Southeast Asia, including Indonesia, with this lack of education and a lot of stigma that's going around it, maybe 90% of us don't even get the care that we actually need. And for us as Asian women, we, when it comes to like women's health, we are also part of the culturally marginalized groups. Why? Because a lot of research, a lot of technology that are available, a lot of like new ideas and new things that is actually available are not meant for us. Our body are different, our whole system are different, everything that we have and everything that we need are probably different. And so we are not really into the group who can have all of this, the latest technology or like the latest solution when it comes to health. And last but not least, I think the group that I see so often are underserved. It could be you, it could be I, it could be our sisters, it could be our friends who are women with chronic conditions, which often dismiss. Just like a story about our previous, one of our patients and our user, when for 10 years she was just told that the only problem she has is gastric. Right? She knows for sure that her body, you know, there's something wrong with it. She knows and understands the symptoms, but for years and years and years, she was told that she's okay and it's not something that she needs to cure. And unfortunately, that's also a lot of case for a lot of women as well. And these are the women or like the people that we want to serve, and at the same time, unfortunately, are the underserved. So, like coming back to the challenges on like how, so then how can we solve all of this issue? One thing that is very, very true about the Asian market, and especially like a fertility and women's health, is that we have a really huge cultural barriers. It is something that a lot of people don't really notice and think that the cultural barriers are something that is not unique to Asia, in a sense that we can get the same solution as maybe like our friends in Europe or maybe in the US, but that is not true, because when it comes to fertility and reproductive health as well as family planning, this cultural belief as well as stigma are something that is like unique to us. And when we don't think about it, or like when we don't really understand the idea of it, we might be coming up with like solutions that is very great as well as sophisticated in a way, but not really solving the problem that we actually need. For example, when we talk about periods, like, do we really talk about it? Is it something that we can talk about openly, or is it something that we have to talk with, like other names, the student one names, right? Then when we talk about like miscarriages and infertility, is it really something that we can openly say or accept without blaming a certain gender, right? Yes. And also when we talk about like the family dynamic, it is very, very uh, common for women to deprioritize their own health because they want to prioritize their family. Could be their husband, could be their parents, or maybe could be their child, but not really thinking about like their own health in the sense that helping them to increase their quality of life. Right. And then we combine all of these cultural barriers. Two of the biggest things that we have to think about is also the financial barriers. Because majority of the time, again, these treatments are expensive. And unlike maybe most countries out there, a lot of countries in Asia don't really adopt the same for example, like credit scoring system or like financial system that like supporting the way women here works, or um, kind of like contributing in terms of like economy and family. And another thing that is also very important, again, location, right? Like in for example, like in Indonesia alone, the locations are like huge and wide, and sometimes it's very hard to go from one places to another. Maybe same with every other country. Maybe in other countries, islands are not the problems, but infrastructure could be the problem, which means that we have to think about like how do we provide all of the solutions that is easy to access for them, or at the same time, maybe it could be easily deployed to all of these locations for our users. Yeah. And so this is the pillars that I've seen work at the same time, also very inclusive when it comes to providing the solutions for women's health. Number one, the one that we have to realize is that low friction access is very important. It is, I'll say, in the world where technologies thrive, does not necessarily mean technology is the best solution. Why? Because technology also comes with frictions when it comes into like the adoption, and sometimes the people that we want to serve are not able to access this high technology that is already available maybe in other part of the world. Right. And then secondly, hyperlocal content. Hyperlocal content are the way we talk to our target market or like a user, and it's also the way we communicate with them. We could be having a really, really great message, but when it comes to making sure that this message comes true and being accepted to them is one thing that's actually more important than the message itself. And it works by making sure that we have a hyper-local content. The third is affordable care pathways. Again, some solutions specifically have to be uh, thought about in a way that can be presented as more affordable. And I think that this is one of the solutions that we need to always try to figure out, or maybe like come up with, and how to like make it more affordable, not only for like the user, like for example, like a specific service for the user, but how do we make it also more available for the users in general? So that means, so for example, like how do we make let's say ultrasound cheaper, but then at the same time, how do we make access to ultrasound cheaper? No, that's the kind of thing that we have to think. And then the fourth one is a community first economy, I would say, because in like going back to like the characteristic of the people within our community in Asia, we still, like, as much as we want to change it, like change the stigma and change like the way we talk about our own health as well as like fertility and reproductive health, it is still something that is like very private, and it is still something that people believe from other people's experience or opinion. So to be successful in coming up with all of these solutions, we also have to think about like how do we present ourselves as a community first instead of as, you know, like an entity first or like a corporation first. Last but not least, data. Data, especially for early insight, are very, 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 very important. As much as we are able to kind of like navigate through this world and through this business without gathering necessary data information, this data that we have or like we collect can be a tiny bit of informations that support the next step as well as the actual problem that we need to solve, right? So how did we do that? Like how did Ovy Health do with all of these pillars? I would like to take one very simple like like example of like what we have done. We call it a community driven partnerships. So just by its names, community driven partnerships. We work with our users, we work with the community, and we work with the people in trying to come out with a hidden agenda or like problems that they need to be solved. Then we brought these problems to our partners, which are clinics as well as government. And then we, in an exchange, we ask them to solve this problem on behalf of us. Right. The simplest thing that we have done when it comes to this, for example, is like the meet the doctor theory. So this, like the idea behind this is that users or the people that we work with thinks that they don't have enough access when it comes to like talking to the doctors. So we bring the doctors. But then at the same time, the doctor feels like, oh, they would definitely love to meet like all of these users. And so they're presenting themselves in a format that we want. So it kind of like give them a benefit for both sides, not only the users, but at the same time also the doctors. And from all of this, like even on the community, we listen that there are like a few other problems that they need, and we can help both sides to make it easier. So for example, is in terms of payment plan. And with this whole situations, our conversion rate for one event, direct to users event, are typically pretty high. on one point, we did an IVF fair in Jakarta, and our conversion rate was 70%. And if you understand, like once you get into the market, then you will understand 70% conversion for IVF uh, treatments are like in the day are pretty high. Yeah. And because of that, we understand that sometimes it's the ecosystem that matters more than the single product. We could be coming up with only one thing, for example, just a webinar or maybe a seminar. But if we forget about the other things, such as like the partnership with clinic or doctors, or maybe even the payment plan support, or maybe like even something else, it might be impactful, but not as impactful as we wanted to do. And so, learning from all of this, I feel like what is unique to the industry and the market that we are in right now are these four things. So one, listening. What I mean by listening is go directly to the people that we want to serve. It's so easy at the moment to understand what is going on in like globally, because we can browse, we can search on the internet, we can ask AI and stuff, everything. But that's all, not to say they're like not accurate, but they're combined data. Right? We are dealing with a very unique community again, so we need to understand exactly what is on their mind and how can we solve it with the way their mind thinks. Secondly, it's okay to come up with something that you don't think is high tech or sophisticated. Why? Because sometimes this lowest barrier that is available is the one that you need to resolve. And therefore, you also have to build the trust first before the technology. Women's health, it's something that is like very, very private, and it's very, very sensitive, very personal towards yourself. You can be coming out with like the greatest technology, but without the trust, it's very hard for people to believe in using your own solution. Yeah. And last but not least, the like women's health is an industry where it has been neglected for a long, long time. And so we cannot solve it alone. Leverage through partnership, because there are so many problems that enough for every one of us to actually exist in this industry and still strive. Yeah. So last but not least, my message is to start small, pilot small, and see what works, and that's where is your expertise and something the line that you can actually be focusing on. And it's not like for us at Ovy Health, with that our goals is to actually build solutions that serve all, which is all women. And the way we think is always to think about beyond the ideal user. So for example, like fertility, the best is always like maybe the upper income, then but what about the rest, right? So we look into like how the whole thing shifts. And then we build culturally empathetic products as well. And in the way we run our business, we not only think about just the growth, but we also think about the impact. Growth here could be very specific to businesses, but that impact could be outside of the business. It could be like the number of people who, as simple as feel better about learning from maybe like something that we do, or about feeling better about something that they heard from us. And therefore, we create the pathways that try to support every stage, from awareness to screening to diagnosis to even care and to even follow up, so that it can fulfill our visions to create a healthier community of women in Indonesia and Southeast Asia. And last but not least, the way we look at this, as much as we want to create these impacts, we still think about the revenue model and how it will be. Why? Because at the end of the day, we need to be sustainable as a business for us to create the biggest impact in women's health. And as much as it is, like as a business, we need to do this very important part, which is a revenue model. So that's a little bit about us, me and Ovy Health. And would love to connect. And if you have any questions for me, I would probably open the floor for questions now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Sastya, for key insights that you shared on serving the underserved. If anyone who's listening today have any questions, you can post them in the chat and we'll be answering them shortly. So, Sastya, I do have some questions about you. Thank you for a very comprehensive sharing on what do we need to do to serve the underserved here in Southeast Asia of Asia. So I have several questions. So let me start. For founders who want to build for underserved women but don't know where to start, what are the most needing solution you suggest to them?
I would say look into your own problem. I think that's the easiest. That's I say like that's the easiest solutions that we can always come up with. What do you feel as a problem that is true to you might also be a problem that is happening with a lot of other things. But also why I say this, because like in you're running in the industry where I wouldn't say it's easy. I wouldn't say it's easily accepted by everyone. And if we really want to solve this whole problem, what we need first is the grit as well as the patience to solve this problem. So always start with whatever you're feeling.
Okay, so my next question is you actually highlighted these barriers, right? Access, high cost, and cultural stigma as major barriers for the underserved women. Which of these do you feel is the hardest to change? And how can founders realistically work around this, especially in the early stages?
I think the hardest barrier is actually the cultural stigma. I would say why? Because when it comes to like financial barriers, it's easy. It's math. You have problem A, you solve it with solution B. Done. And then when we look at locations, it's also very easy. Like it's still math in a way, right? Like how far it is, how do we make it shorter? How do we like come up with something that's like faster? All of that. So it's easy, but then when it comes to like cultural barriers, it's harder, because what you need to change is not only about the user's mindset, but we also have to think about like their parents, their grandparents, like how they brought up. How about the family, like the husband side? How about the partner side? How about like the people surrounding them? How do we actually get to them, and how do we actually solve the issue? And I think it's specifically like in Asia, where there's like a lot of like culture, right? Like we have a lot of not only race, but we also have a lot of like background. And this is something that I would say overlooked by solutions that are already available. And that is why if someone asks me, the very same reason why if someone asks me like, oh, Sas, but this kind of solution is already available in Europe, for example, why do you do it in Indonesia? Then I'm like, it's not gonna work if we just copy paste on like what is already available right now. And the same reason why it is not available in it here, because this one major thing is the cultural.
Okay, thank you. So basically, you would say that cultural barriers is something that the founders need to really think about on how to overcome in the early stage itself, then they don't have to think about it later on.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is the question is basically about what works. You shared that several strategies for reaching underserved communities here, right? From your experience, which approach has created the strongest engagement or behavior change? And why? Why did this approach work?
It's the way we build trust before technology. I would I believe this is a safe space, and I'm just gonna share openly here. when we first start Ovy Health, we have the idea of like include like AI directly into our system. So we have this plan of like creating the big grand technology that's like very, very sophisticated. We launch with an endorsement for doctors, from professor, from everybody who's actually eligible to talk about it and say, oh, this thing is very, very, very and highly accurate. Even we did a trial with a lot of like few users, like chosen users, on how our pre-diagnosis system can actually shorten the time for diagnosis from what usually is 12 years to be few days. That's how accurate it is. But the first thing that we forgot is to build the trust. Like at the end of the day, you know how much and how did we get a lot of our leads and our users by actually like through this trust. And sometimes this trust doesn't really even come along with the technology. So we have what we call as our lowest technology, which we embed into WhatsApp. It's just WhatsApp. Then apparently, a lot of people trust this WhatsApp more than our own, app like technology, like at the start. Why? It's simply because they feel something and they think they can trust that more than they can trust the technology. So that's like what is unique in it, I think, to the business. And if let's say anyone asked me if I were to redo it all over again, like what would I do? Then this is probably one of the things that I would change.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So you also talked about this framework here about awareness, screening, diagnosis, care, and follow up, right? Where do you think most startups currently fall short along this pathway based on your experience, and how you think they can actually close the gap?
Awareness. Awareness is the one thing that I feel a lot of startup forget about. And I see also in the industry a lot of, let's say, like VCs or the investment side categorize the awareness as a different pillars within the whole industry itself. But actually, awareness is one thing that needs to be tied to every other solutions that is available. Why? Because everything else wouldn't work without this awareness, because majority of people don't even know, right? So for example, like screening, we can be selling screening like crazy, but if they don't know why, or like what it is for, screening not gonna work. Same with like follow up. They wouldn't know, like they wouldn't understand why we do like follow up with them if they don't really understand like the importance or the urgency of doing this without us telling them. So I think like awareness is something that is important.
Okay. All right. So we have a question from We Positive. What's the biggest challenge you face in go-to-market, and did you pivot at some point of time?
I think I'm gonna answer the second part first. Did we pivot at some point of time? We did not. I think because we, ever since like the start, we understand and we know our vision is to basically create our own ecosystem. So we know there's like a lot of like ways that we want to do, but our what we did was like we underestimated a little bit on the way a certain stakeholder respond. So what I mean, for example, like we do have a B2B and the B2C side. We did thought that B2B would be the easiest and the shortest time, but turns out when we did that, B2B takes a little bit longer in the space that we are in. So instead of like we're not pivoting, but we are betting on the B2C first. I mean, in that case, then we switch over to like betting on the B2C. while we working or like waiting for the B2B to basically like close in it.
And and another part of the question she asked was, what's the biggest challenge you face in go to
Hmm.
market?
The biggest challenge is I wouldn't okay. I think the go to honestly, I think because there's so much demand when it comes to this, getting into the market is not hard. What's hard is the conversion. And so when we plan our like go to market, not only that we have to think about like how do we reach to these people, but we also have to think about like what's the conversion rate in a sense that like how fast that is convert, so that it can match the whole your like revenue and business model plan as well as like fundraising and development and everything else.
All right. Okay. So there's
Mm.
another question here from Eve.
Mm.
Eve, maybe you want to unmute yourself and ask this question. Do you want to do that? Yeah, okay, never mind. I'll just read
Mm.
her question here. It's quite long. So she mentioned, she shared that, thank you for your presentation. I fully agree with the barriers you've outlined. One additional challenge we are observing in the growing consolidation of IVF clinics around Southeast Asia, often driven by private equity groups. This consolidation
Yeah.
tends to push prices upwards rather than downwards. How do you see this trend affecting affordability and access in the region?
Competition. Competition is I think the solutions to this problem, the way like in the way I see it. So we as a background, like Ovy Health now working with 200 clinic in 5 countries. So we have in Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and South Korea. What we see, even clinics in these 5 countries are targeting around a similar market. So not only they target the local market, but they also target the foreign market, right? And then just like any basic, simple economy formula, when there's a demand, there's like a supply, and when there's a supply, there's a demand. And like we do see that some of the fertility treatment try to go up when there's consolidations or when there's like a new thing or like a new technology that's coming up. But then at the same time, it's also driven down by competition. And I think because OV Health stands in the in between all of these clinics and the users, we have a very direct insight on how the price range are, who are these people, and what the people are actually interested about. We did communicate with our clinics. We did say and provide them insight on like what is actually going on in the market. And in that way, I do see a lot of our partners actually provide at least like give us similar price when it comes to care. So, for example, previously, I think it's still until 2 years ago, uh, IVF costs in Indonesia are much more expensive than Malaysia. So it's a no-brainer for Indonesians to actually fly to Malaysia, stay there even for 2 weeks, and still gonna be cheaper. But because of this insight that we shared, is now we do see in the clinics in Indonesia cutting their price up to 30% at the moment, trying to match the Malaysian market. And this is just one of the examples that is actually happening. But we, at least like at OV Health, we can probably say like, oh, whichever country except Singapore that you want to go with us, the price are around the same. Maybe just like different by, for example, like for IVF, it's just different by $100 to $200. So you have more options, and that has been the formula that works with us.
Okay, I hope that answers your question. All right, so I have a final question for you before we wrap up today. Looking back, earlier you mentioned trust, but looking
Yeah.
back, what is other than trust? What is the one thing you wish you had understood earlier about building your startup that would have saved you some time and effort?
Hmm. I I think if I think about like saving me sometimes an effort and like how I would do it, um I think this is like a little bit more personal to me, but I realized that asking help it is free, but then at the same time has been the one that giving me a lot more time and just make it easier in my uh like in my way. Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah, so like I know when I first did my like OB Health and like the previous project that I did, I always thought that it's gonna be something that I have to do by myself. Just like knock doors on like some strangers way or something. But turns out a lot of help actually comes from people that I actually know and people that I already probably worked with in the previous experience. And I think just like by discussing and like talking to them has been one thing that I make me feel now, oh, if only I did it long time ago, that probably I'm way more advanced in my way now than what I'm currently am.
Okay, all right. So thank you so much, Sastya, for our session today. I want to thank everyone for joining us today as well. And just a quick reminder, today's session is leading up to our Alpha Startups for Her. So if you are a femtech or a woman-led startup here in Southeast Asia, please scan the QR code and log in to find out more. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Once again, thank you, Sastya. Take care and have a great week ahead.